Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the VMblog Expert Interview Series. Joining us today is a familiar face and a friend to the show, Andy Fernandez of Haiku. And I understand that since the last time we spoke, it looks like you've been promoted with a fresh new title of GM of AI and Cyber at Haiku.
Dave, nice to see you. Always a pleasure having a conversation. I'm particularly excited about this conversation today.
Yeah, I am too. I know I was able to get a little briefing of ahead of time of the technology coming out, so I look forward to this discussion and sharing this. Before we do that, let's start things off with just a little bit of background for the maybe 10 viewers who may not be familiar with Haiku. Can you tell us a little bit about the company?
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, many organizations have known us both as a leader in data protection across all workloads, but also as the number one SaaS data protection platform. Haiku, our focus is to not just focus on a specific workload, but to protect your information, your data, and to help you recover regardless of where it is. It's similar, sounds like the Japanese poem, but it stands for hybrid cloud uptime. And I'll share much more about that evolution in today's conversation. But absolutely, our goal here is we're a resilience company. We're a protection company. We are here, regardless of where customers are, to be able to make sure that their data is protected.
Now, we kind of teased that, we're here to talk about today. So let's kind of get into it. Tell us, what is Haiku announcing and what makes this announcement so significant?
Absolutely. So, Dave, one of the things that I'll mention before I even unleash this announcement is you've been in the industry for a while and you know data protection very, very well. And data protection is always something very, very critical. It's something that you, via regulation, have to have. But we can be honest with ourselves, Dave, that no one has had a blast buying data protection solutions. It's not something that they grow up thinking, I really want to procure a data protection solution. Because what's the relationship that we have even as people like ourselves who we also have to protect our data? Well, we need to do it. We need to make sure we're compliant. We need to make sure that we're safe. And we need to make sure that if or when something happens, we have to be able to recover that data. And that's the dynamic, right? And David, that's an insurance dynamic, like a life insurance dynamic in the sense like it's the responsible thing to do. But people tend to wait for something to happen to and then go, okay, well, time to pay the premiums, right? And that's what data protection has been for 40 years. And it's been, well, this is the new workload that exists, whether it was physical to virtual machines, to cloud, to SaaS applications, to AI pipelines. Hey, you have to protect that thing. And in doing so, it's very, very critical. And we all have to exist as data protection companies. But the reality, David, is that the potential and the types of information and context that data protection companies have within backups is a dormant beast of data. It is a goldmine of data. It is something that truly has essentially memories of your organization that nobody else has. Think about it. At Haiku, we protect over 100 workloads. We'll protect anything from any Git repo the organization's using to ticketing systems. And we learn, and the customer has access to know, hey, what kind of metadata am I backing up? What are the differentials that I have, the configurations, the file? So much context is backed up, but they're just using it to dust it off and recover it. And what we're announcing today, Dave, is the ability to actually learn and uncover the insights of that backup data, of being able to say, give me an understanding of this scenario across this user, across this organization, across one or all applications, and let me start to uncover immutable truths within that. And so what we're announcing is Haiku Air, AI resilience. And it's this next evolution of not only being able to say, look, your backup and data protection provider, they have to protect everything that you do. And we pride ourselves in our coverage and our ability to go for both breadth and depth. But why not give the customers day to day value? And what Air does, it turns the backup industry from life insurance to healthcare, something that you can actually depend on to not only make sure that you're safe, but also start to anticipate things as well.
Yeah, no, that this is great. This is exciting. Can you walk us through how Haiku Air actually works?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll talk to you a little bit about kind of the types of customers that really benefit from this. Dave, when people move their workloads from a virtual machine to as a service deployment, right? I had my Git repo, my emails, everything lived in a VM. So I had backups, I had everything that I needed to do to make sure that I can protect my VMs. It was one to many, it was monolithic. But all of a sudden, I have 150, 200 different applications now exist in their own plane, right? Now, we all know the data protection challenge behind that and why Haiku became the number one SaaS data protection platform. But the reality is that now, not only do you have very limited options in this organization, but you also have very limited visibility into what's actually happening inside those workloads. So your average healthcare financial services company in the mid market, Dave, they don't know, do I have sensitive data in any of those workloads? Is there an insider that has been deleting or slowly exporting or exfiltrating data from these workloads? Do I have any specific anomalies? Like, why is the change rate in GitHub this way, right? There's so many different insights, whether it's threats or risk or simple drift that could become very dangerous in the future. In order for a company, like a healthcare company with a couple thousand employees and a small IT team, they have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to even get some insight into those applications. And so what Air is able to do is say, look, you're protecting dozens of applications with a Haiku, all of your critical systems of record. Let's tell you what's in those backups. Let's tell you where the sensitive data is. Let's tell you what's been deleted, what's been accessed, what's been exported, what's changed. But most importantly, Dave, let's tell you all of that in context, all of your backups across all of your applications in one pool of context that you can learn from. And you can start to really understand what's happening, your data posture, your understanding of what's happening across all of these workloads. And so what we see this, David, is it's the ability to essentially democratize this data. We democratize data protection. Now we're democratizing the data itself so that these companies with limited budgets, limited time can make the most out of their backup investment.
Yeah, super smart. And I know you guys are never, resting. You're always coming up with something. But I have to ask you, how did the whole idea for Haiku Air come from? Like, how'd this come about?
Like every good idea from our customers. So think about what happens in the dynamic of data protection today. You had backup administrators who owned backup and recovery for all workloads, right? VMs, file shares, they king or queen of that. I will help you recover. I'm telling you your RPOs and your RTOs. Once that moves to as a service, all of a sudden application owners, SecOps, security, cloud teams, they get involved because they are now true personas that are impacted and many times even making the decision of how are we going to protect this. But these folks, backup is just one thing to them. They have to make sure that the data is resilient, that the service that they're using is giving them the most ability to maximize their investment. So our customers were the ones that came to us and saying, hey, you're backing up Okta, Entra ID, Jira, GitHub, Salesforce. You're giving me the ability to have so much data and context over time. You're giving me immutable truths, and you're only letting me recover. I want to learn from it. I want to query it. I want to be able to understand. Let me throw it into a data lake. Let me understand what's inside of those workloads. And that is where the idea of Air came from. Customers realizing the value in that dormant data and asking for the tools to learn from it.
Now, Andy, what is it that you think sets, Haiku Air apart from what other data protection companies out there, what they're doing, whether they're partnering with or they're acquiring security-based technologies?
Yeah, you're seeing tons of M&A activity today, where organizations are realizing that data protection, data resilience, especially because of the risk, the speed of AI touching these applications, they realize it needs to be one thing. And I need to be able to go to look at a vendor and have them protect my data, tell me what's inside my data, help me recover it. Now, you've seen incredible amounts of M&A activity behind this, people purchasing DSPM solutions, other kind of security solutions. But the challenge here is that all this is doing is forcing the customer to start stacking even more vendors. So think about it, David. If you're an average organization now, you probably have multiple backup vendors because these data protection vendors, they don't have the ability to protect all of these other workloads. So you still have to stack backup vendors. And now they're acquiring additional services, and you have to stack that as well. So where we see ourselves as a true differentiator is one place, one control plane to be able to actually protect everything that your organization needs to protect and being able to also learn from it all within one place without having to pay an M&A tax from the organization, right? So the most important thing here though is not just that it's one view, the prodigious single pane of glass thing everybody always talks about, but it's context, Dave. We back up over 100 workloads, so many SaaS applications. There is context, cross context that nobody else can read from, right? You'll have vendors who say, hey, we found an issue in GitHub, but then they don't let you back up or recover GitHub. So they're just telling you and pointing at an issue, but you have no ability to recover that data. Our goal is to not tell you, hey, this is what we found inside of this backup. You should go think about addressing this or recovering these specific objects. And hey, we're going to help you recover. That's a critical, critical piece here.
Now, Andy, as a person that lives, breathes, day to day in this industry, you're an expert. So, if you could maybe talk about how the role of backup itself is evolving, and do you think that this is changing the industry in a meaningful way?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually thrilled and excited about what this does for data protection because once again, human nature is to kind of wait for something to happen to then think, okay, well, all right, well, we should go invest so it doesn't happen again, right? We saw that. How many times did we see that with the early days of ransomware attacks? How many times did we see that with the early days of Microsoft 365, where people were like, oh, it's a SaaS vendor. I don't have to worry about it. They'll back it up. And then something happened and they lost their data. And they're like, okay, well, we need to go and back it up, right? That's always been the cat and mouse game in data protection simply because of human nature and the reactive approach. By customers understanding the value, the history, the memory, the context of all of these applications, and the fact that the more things that they back up with Haiku, the more they can learn about their environment, creates a much more proactive relationship with data protection and also makes them safer because now in exchange for those insights, they also are getting the ability to recover and restore an entire application or even very specific files or configurations. So this is not only giving the customers more everyday value, but by default making them safer because they're being more proactive about procuring a data protection solution.
Yeah, digging into the security side of things a bit more. What data security challenges are customers facing today, particularly in the age of AI that we're in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to talk about two things. Pre-AI, and this is going to still be a problem in the AI era, is take a healthcare company or a financial services company in the mid-market. They've got Microsoft 365, about 100 other SaaS applications, right? Microsoft 365 offers some excellent tools. They have something called Purview that will tell you, hey, this is some of the data loss prevention. This is some of the sensitive data that we found here. There's things that you can do in there to make sure that SharePoint, Exchange, OneDrive is all, compliant and protected, right? But they don't have that for anything else. They don't know what's in Salesforce. They don't know what's in Confluence. They don't know what's in Jira. They don't know what's in Asana or within Box. And they have to go and find solutions that will help them do so and pay an enormous tax on that. So, from a data security perspective, whether it's sensitive data, whether it's insider risk, they just didn't have it because they didn't have the budget to go and do so. The backup data as an externality allows them to go and start to understand these challenges. But then let's talk about AI. So, what I see and the customer conversations that we've experienced is AI is making SaaS the playground for experimentation. So when you think about AI, what most organizations are doing, there's always going to be levels of maturity and innovation within organizations. People are going to be building their own, people are going to be managing their own, self-hosting. But at the beginning, what most people are doing is subscribing to the co-pilots and the AI assistants of every single SaaS application. And then they're building workflows on top of that. And then they're orchestrating those. They're using services like NAN and all of those things, right? Now, think about this. All of a sudden, you had 2,000 developers in your organization. All of them have an agent. All of them, that agent, by the way, has the same permissions that they do. And all of them are contributing and making changes at machine speed. They are committing more features, more code, more lines of code per day than ever seemed feasible before. Those change rates could be very dangerous if a mistake is being made. If the agent, we just saw one, I think 2 days ago, where it wiped out a production database, right? So, think of these as scripts with personalities in a way. And so what you're seeing is that SaaS is becoming a playground, whether that's GitHub, whether that's Jira, whether it's even Microsoft 365. You're going to see a lot of these new data loss scenarios be because of some form of agent-based automation as well, right? So what we notice though, and what that means, David, is you don't need any, it's not how much of a fancy new data protection solution that you need. It's Do you even have baseline protection of these applications? Because most organizations today, they're not protecting GitHub. They're not protecting Jira. They still think that the vendor is doing that for them. And so when you look at the risk today, it went from humans deleting things at human speed or being non-compliant at human speeds to machines deleting things at machine speed and being non-compliant at machine speed. So the speed, the chaos, and the brutality of which something like this could hit is going to force people to think, how am I protecting my SaaS applications? Because that right now is the number one playground.
Now, Andy, earlier you mentioned that this, latest technology was customer driven. So with that said, now that you guys have built something to answer that challenge, what has the response been like from customers and partners who are in your early adopter program for Haiku Air?
Childlike joy, I would say, because what it's created was a completely different dynamic and relationship they have with their backup data. And what we've noticed, David, that's very interesting, and it kind of changes the rules on product management and how we build products, is once you have AI, once you have natural language and the ability to speak to your backups in plain English, kind of like what we're delivering to our customers, we have a list of use cases and insights that we know everyone's going to benefit from, right? Which is like, hey, go find PCI in this application or across these three applications. Hey, grab this user and tell me what they've deleted or exported in the last 7 days, right? But customers are coming up with their own insights, their own queries, their own very, very boutique things that they explicitly want to know that only they know within their organization. And now they can talk to their backups to learn from it. So what this has changed is the complete dynamic between, hey, here's what we think is right for you, go learn. Customers saying, here's everything that I'm finding out with my backups. And that's why, within Air, David, you will see kind of a marketplace of ideas, an ability to have templates that Haiku gives you because we've tried and tested them, but also the customers creating their own templates and their own queries and their own layers of understanding around backup data. It is completely flipped the dynamic over.
Now, without getting too far ahead of my own skis here, thinking about, I mean, we haven't even, this is still at early days, right? We're just now getting to launch this. Uh, and I don't want to give away any trade secrets as well. But if you could talk about some of the innovations that might be on the horizon for Air, what's next? I mean, this obviously everything you've already talked about so far is mind blowing and extremely important for all these customers. But what do you guys have on the docket that's coming?
Dave, it's going to be a pace and a speed that we haven't experienced before. And you're going to see a move from dozens to hundreds to thousands of possible insights. And when I say an insight, David, it's not just, hey, I learned something from my backup. It's, hey, I used to use this other solution to tell me these things. I can now use my backup data in order to do so. So you're also going to see a lot of consolidation in the space too. But most of our customers are looking at this and saying, hey, I don't even have a solution, right? So you're going to see orders of magnitude more level of insights that people can gather because the customers are telling us what they're finding out with their data. It's a completely different dynamic. But apart from that, we know that the rate at which people are adopting, using, building, and maintaining agents is going to require a level of agent governance that organizations haven't been able to see. But it's not just being able to say, hey, this is what your agent has touched and done, but hey, this is what they've done. You need to be able to recover this very, very, very quickly. So you're going to see continuous enhancements and capabilities around that as well.
As we wrap things up, I know you've given a lot of great information for people to consume and digest, but as they do that, where can they go if they want to learn more about Haiku and more specifically Haiku Air?
Just go to haiku.com. It'll be right there. You're going to have a wait list. We have customers that are already on, but you're going to have the ability to join us over the next few weeks and months to be able to start learning from your backups and speaking to them in plain English. Haiku.com. It'll be right there on the homepage, and you can sign up for the wait list.
Yeah, that's great. Andy, as always, it's a pleasure catching up with you, and I look forward to the next time that we can do this.
It'll be very soon, Dave. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you.